Thank you, Mr Acting Speaker. On the 30th of September 2022, a suicide attack inside the Khwahed Educational Centre in the Dasht el-Barchi district of West Kabul claimed the lives of over 35 girls and young women belonging to the Hazara community. This is profoundly distressing to so many members of the Afghan community living in my electorate. At the last census, there were over 14,000 Afghans or people born in Afghanistan now residing in New South Wales, and of those, 3,325 live in the Granville electorate, and about half of those live in Marylands. And of those living in the Granville electorate, most of them are Hazaras or other Shia minorities. And for them, this most recent terrorist attack reminds them of why they needed to flee Afghanistan in the first place, and so many of them have come to Australia as humanitarian entrants over the last 3 decades. This most recent suicide attack, of course, targets girls in their place of education, which is an absolute reminder to anyone who needed reminding of why it is an absolute disgrace that the Taliban has come to power again in Afghanistan. People knew that this would happen. They knew that they would attack girls trying to go to school. Another 82 people were injured in the attack, and the attack was perpetuated as students were sitting a practice university exam. UNICEF said of that particular attack that they are appalled by the horrific attack early in the morning inside the Khwahed Education Centre. This heinous act claimed the lives of dozens of adolescent girls and boys and severely injured many more. The victims were practising for their entrance exam to university. They went on to say violence in or around educational establishments is never acceptable. Such places should be havens of peace where children can learn, be with friends and feel safe as they build skills for their future. Children and adolescents are not and must never be the target of violence. Once again, UNICEF reminds all parties in Afghanistan to adhere to and respect human rights and ensure the safety and protection of all children and young people. This is not the first attack on an educational establishment by the Taliban or even by ISIS, who've become active in Afghanistan in the last few years and are at odds with the Taliban, even though they seem to have a very similar ideology and very similar practices. And unfortunately, the Taliban coming to power has not ended the horrific terrorist attacks that have plagued Afghanistan in recent years. Recently, the community also noted or commemorated the anniversary of the fall of Kabul, which occurred on the 15th of September last year. After the fall of Kabul, Australia held one of their largest humanitarian evacuations. Over 9 days, DFAT, Home Affairs, the Australian Border Force and the ADF worked to facilitate the safe movement of over 4,000 people out of Kabul on 32 flights. And it worked to ensure safe departure from Afghanistan for those people. And unfortunately, there are hundreds of thousands who could not be evacuated at that time. It has been, and of those people on the flights, only 167 were Australian citizens. The remainders were Afghans with approved visas. One of those I'd like to actually also pay tribute to very briefly. His name is Hashmat Hashmatullah, and he came to see me at the end of last year after he'd arrived in Australia for only a few months and was having difficulty finding work and asked if he could do work experience in my office. I then had a vacancy with someone had to take long-term sick leave, and he worked in my office for a few months until he was recently placed as a humanitarian cadet at Transport for New South Wales, which is utilising his skills in procurement. He worked in major hotels, but also with the Australian and American governments in Kabul. And for that reason, he is obviously a target, as many people would have been, or was a target. He was able to come to Australia safely, and now he's been placed in this program with Transport for New South Wales, and I do think that's an excellent program.